Mpho, thank you so much for coming onto our platform this morning and joining us in our studios.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Dokozo.
Well, for starters, you look stunning.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
You know, and it leads me to the question of how did you get into the world of pageantry? You know, I was reading your list of descriptors. You know, you have so much happening. You're a mother, you're a wife, you're a life coach, you're an author.
Yeah.
You're juggling so much. And now we have Mrs. Universe Africa added to the title. How did you get into it?
So I must say, it actually started when I was very young. At the age of 12, growing up in a small town called Ventersdorp, Ching. It's a township. A friend of mine actually entered me into Miss Ching at the time. I didn't even know. So to my amusement, I actually won the title of Miss Ching at the time at 12. And I must say, since then, it has kind of like stuck with me to know what it feels like to actually win. And I knew at some point that, you know what, I wanted to represent my country overseas and actually bring the title home, the crown home. It took me a long time, obviously, because now I'm actually 44 years old. So it didn't happen when I was in my 20s. It's happening now in my 40s. But that dream stayed alive with me, and I know for a fact that, you know what, as much as I tried to shrug it away, it just would not go away. So that's why, after giving birth to my 3-year-old daughter, I actually realized that, you know what, this girl is one day going to say to me, Mommy, I actually have big dreams that I want to fulfill as a human being. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't go and actually fulfill my own dreams so that I can then be a very good example to my daughter. And that's when I actually started dusting up my dreams as well and say, hey, what are the dreams that Mpho has not fulfilled, that I kept on shrugging because of whatever reason? You know, you always tell yourself it's not the right time. Or, you know, earlier in my life, in my 20s, I actually entered Miss South Africa. But they didn't call me. So the ego was bruised, and I realized at the time that, you know what, I'm not going to go into it. But yes, after giving birth to my daughter, I actually realized that, you know what, it's still in me, and I needed to go and fulfill this dream. So after being crowned Mrs. Universe Africa, actually not South Africa, I now have the opportunity not only to represent South Africa, but the whole continent at an international stage. So I always say, you know, God will place a dream in your heart. It's a purpose for me. I feel like I've been called to actually do something that has not been done before. In 44 years of existence, Mrs. Universe has never seen an African winner. And I'm raising my hand to bring that crown back home with me.
Yeah. You know, listening to you, you brought to mind the poem, you know, A Dream Deferred. What happens to a dream deferred? And I think everybody at some point in their lives has to kind of engage with that question, what happened to the dream that I once had? And maybe life got in the way. And so your story is very inspiring in that sense. But nonetheless, Mpho, you know, there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to the world of beauty pageants. Very narrow-minded perceptions around what it entails, the kind of women who end up being contestants. Is it just another way for us to, you know, objectify women, over-sexualize women? It doesn't aid, you know, in efforts to bring about gender parity. What's your response to those individuals who generally have a very negative outlook when it comes to beauty pageants?
I must say, you know, over the years, beauty pageant has obviously evolved. Yes, there was a time in history when, you know, women were objectified and all of that, but I must say we've actually turned it around. Right now, I'm actually proud to say that a pageant is more like a woman empowerment program. Because for me specifically, I spent 21 years of my life in corporate investment banking, right? And again, it was something that my parents actually put me into. I was not necessarily going to be a banker, but as an African child, you know how it is. Your parents actually decide for you because they're paying for your school fees, they're paying for that. So I spent 21 years of my life in corporate and investment banking. However, I must say that the fulfillment that I have now doing what I'm doing is far better in terms of, you know, getting the paycheck when I was in corporate investment banking. Right now, with using the pageantry as a platform, I'm able to be a philanthropist. I'm able to fulfill my calling or my purpose, which is a humanitarian. I've done things like, buy school shoes for underprivileged kids. I've done sanitary towels. We know that girl children in South Africa, many of them still miss school because they don't have the necessities that they require when it's their time of the month.
Yeah.
So it's actually allowed me to venture into a purposeful, driven life.
Right.
So oftentimes, we look at women and what we see is a woman perhaps maybe in a costume or in a bikini, but that is just a fraction of what actually goes on a pageant. It's more of a life discovery because I've discovered so much of myself on it as well. To discover the fact that, it gives me thrills to just go out there and inspire women. So part of why I'm actually also doing this, I'm actually an advocate for gender-based violence. Being a victim, or rather, at this point in my life, I survived it. I was once married to a man who was very abusive, psychologically, emotionally, and physically, right? And at the point when you are going through all these things as a woman, you don't see how you can actually even see another day to actually, go out there and thrive. You are continuously in a survival mode, continuously trying to find out, how am I even going to see another day? So with that journey, being in pageantry, I've actually managed to write a book which is helping other women that are finding themselves in that situation to see that when Mpho actually was in this situation, what is it that she did that helped her to get out of it? And not only get out of it, but actually get out of it stronger, wiser, with purpose, to be able to actually inspire other women, motivate other women. So the book itself is called Awakening to Truth, and it speaks about my domestic violence experience. It talks about my sexual harassment in the workplace, as well as body shaming. So a lot of traumas that we as women, at some point or another, might go through or have gone through them. Or somebody who's going through the same thing. But oftentimes in society, we are told,
sweep those
things under the rug. Don't speak about them. Pageantry has given me a voice. It's given me that platform to say, be the hope for the hopeless, be the voice for the voiceless.
Right. I mean, I want to say, because it does seem that you've learned so much from your personal experiences, but also very specifically from the world of pageantry. But, some who are probably watching the program may argue, oh, well, that's a very individualized experience, What are some of these sort of general life experiences that you've learned over the years in the world of pageantry that you would like to share with young women that are currently watching you on the stage?
It provides women to take up leadership roles. Remember, as a pageant queen, you need to be in a position where you are a leader. At some point or another, you are going to be required to lead yourself and lead, a group of women, perhaps a sisterhood. In my case, with Mrs. Universe Africa, obviously there's new intakes that are looking up to me.
Right.
So that automatically puts me in a leadership position. So grooming a human being to become a leader, because I think we are all leaders in our own rightful ways. However, it takes a certain kind of caliber for you to say, I am right here, but I can actually grow and become a better leader. And in doing so, I do truly believe that women, in South Africa specifically, because we still need to have a woman president, we haven't had that.
Indeed.
So grooming other women to become and take up leadership positions will actually enable us to be in a position where we take up roles in corporate, roles in entrepreneurial skills, because again, a lot of us women which are entrepreneurial, we also need to be in a position where we are leaders. So that has helped me to be able to lead myself, lead the organization, and also be an example as a leader.
Yeah. I mean, so you're heading off to Bulgaria. This, of course, is a fulfillment of your own personal dream of representing, well, not just South Africa, but, the continent on a global stage. This speaks volumes, Mpho, around issues of representation, other young black women, children watching you on that stage, as you said, fulfilling a very leadership, a very demanding role, is very inspiring. You've already said that you really want to bring the title back home, not just for South Africa, but for the continent as well. But what else are you hoping to achieve as you head out to Bulgaria?
It's a platform where 120 women from across the planet will be coming to Bulgaria, Sofia. So again, it gives me the opportunity to network with women across the planet. Because in there, as an entrepreneur, I would be in a position to, forge relations, forge some kind of collaboration, business interest. So that's what I'm also looking forward to do, because again, bringing new ideas, new concepts from Europe into Africa, for example, will actually open up a lot more doors.
And vice versa.
And vice versa.
African concepts.
Exactly.
To Europe,
because again, I'm taking our culture, our way of life, and actually representing us in a foreign land so that people can then understand more about Africans. We have been, oftentimes seen as the dark continent, right? And for me specifically, I want to be in a position to actually show them that we have leaders, we have a caliber of women in Africa that are ready to take up roles not only in Africa but in the world at large. We are determined, we are powerful, we are kind, and we are loving. So that is my message that I'm sending out into the world, that I would like to actually showcase when I am in Sofia, in Bulgaria.
Well, Mpho, thank you so much for coming onto our program and sharing your story with us. It was such an inspiring story for me to hear, certainly, and I hope for our viewers as well.